Hey guys, welcome back to my saw channel. Today I'm doing another discussion video on another Lombard saw similar to the last one I talked about. This one is a model 3.5D Woodlot Wonder. It's very similar to the 316 Wizard saw that I detailed in my last video, and this one's pretty cool because it's kind of an oddball. It actually shouldn't be as similar as it looks. You can see this one also has the V-shaped handle and the Tillotson MD style float carburetor. And it has that exhaust cap I was talking about with the 5 holes on it. And you can see the 5 holes aren't even evenly spaced, which tells me that these guys were just manufacturing these things as fast as they could to pump them out the door, and they didn't really care about production quality, but it serves a purpose. A lot of people would drill these things out to improve the airflow and thus also make the saw a little bit louder because those holes actually acted as a bit of a muffler. This one, same one as the last one, has an open sprocket with that really cool felling spike on there. These saws were a little ahead of their time because I think 1953, 1954, these were already using 3/8 pitch chain when even similar Lombard saws and later Lombard saws were still using 7/16 and half pitch, the larger pitches. I'm not sure what the mechanism was for switching to 3/8, but I really enjoy it because it's a hell of a lot easier to use the saw and then find a chain for it when the time comes. This one has that rewind starter I was talking about from the other saw that I cannibalized. This one's a good runner. It has plenty of compression, north of 100 psi, which is damn near perfect for these. These were never the high compression engines to begin with. You can see the fuel cap is missing, but I have those swapped out to other saws. I think it was the Wizard saw actually that came without the fuel cap, and this one did. But I've got fuel sitting in that tank, and this tank is empty, so guess where the cap is? The reason I say that this one is an oddball, the 3.5D, according to the IPL, was supposed to have a U-shaped handle instead of the V, and a diaphragm carburetor instead of the float. I believe the D in 3.5D stands for diaphragm. And actually, I've got the IPL in front of me. Just give me a minute to find the page. You can see the U-shaped handle. Now, it kind of looks like a V from that angle, but you're just going to have to trust me. That's the U-shaped with the belly in it, not the straight V notch. And the other, let's see, the other one here, I don't know if you guys can see it. The IPL sort of implies that this carburetor is also mounted at about 45 degrees, just based on the angle of the reed plate in the photo. And just to prove that I'm not completely full of it, there is the specification for the Tillotson diaphragm carburetor, H12A. This one does not have that. Again, this has the older MD-style float carbs found on the old Lombards from like 1951-52. So why is that? Well, could be a couple of things. Lombard, back in the 50s, they had a tendency of adding 316 serial tags to saws that were not, in fact, 316s. Now, was that just an afterthought? Was it somebody else just buying a saw that needed another starter cover and cannibalizing another saw? Could be. But there are so damn many of those saws that are not 316s with 316 on the starter shroud, which tells me that Lombard had some kind of hokey shenanigans going on with the model schemes and probably just had extra starter shrouds to get rid of. So it would not surprise me if they had extra V handles in stock and extra float carburetors, in stock that they needed to get rid of. That being said, this is not in particular an early model, at least based on the serial number, if you believe it. Serial number 3.5D 25601. if I got that right. Yeah, 25601. And I've got another 3.5D that I ordered on eBay that's still hasn't arrived yet. That one has a U-shaped handle and a diaphragm carb. So this one having a later serial number with earlier parts tells me that it could also just be a Frankensaw. You know, that would be a simple explanation too. Somebody needed a handle, somebody needed a carburetor for their 3.5D, and they decided, okay, I'm just going to take the V-shaped handle I have in stock, I'm just going to take the MD float carb I have in stock, put it on here. The float carbs were always mounted at 45 degrees in an effort to get the float mechanism to work either for bucking cuts or felling cuts. Sort of worked, halfway decent. Saws had a tendency of flooding or leaning out depending on which way you bias them. That's just a function of the float mechanism. I mean, it's an older mechanism that's not as efficient. And the diaphragm, of course, the allure for the diaphragm carbs is smaller parts, but you could also use the saw at any freaking angle. You know, not that you'd want to cut upside down, but you could cut upside down if you really, really needed to. So, you know, just another really quirky old Lombard saw from the 1950s. Really cool, really dirty, very unsafe, loud as heck. This one, too, has the old copper fuel lines on it with the shutoff valve, which is not the easiest to manipulate, and no real sense of direction as to which way is on and off. You really just kind of have to play with it and figure out what you're doing. But this is another one with the AH-47 engine, Power Products. Really cheap, somewhat reliable engines. Could be built up or down to a certain price depending on like what kind of bearings you wanted to use. You know, ball bearings versus caged roller bearings. This one runs pretty well. I'm starting to think that the crank bearing might be starting to go because it does sound a little gritty when you pull it over. I'll see if I can, without shaking the camera too bad. I don't know if you guys can hear that. There is a little gritty sound, but it still runs pretty well. Cuts very well. This is actually a new chain I got. Originally I got it for a Homelite XL12, but I figured I'd put it on here because the old chain was gone. It is also missing the cylinder cover on top of the spark plug. You know, there's supposed to be another metal plate that comes up, goes over, and comes back down to help direct airflow off of the flywheel fins. I don't do all that much cutting with this saw, so, you know, I don't really need that per se. I mean, if this was going to be like a professional all-day user, you know, I'd want that just to help direct airflow and keep the engine cool, but, you know, I'll take this thing out and make an occasional cut with it and film it. I've got some videos on my channel about it, or videos of it cutting. It's a slow one, you know. It's supposedly the engine is governed around, I don't know, 4,200 to 4,500 RPM. Less than 5,000 because it definitely sounds slower than something like my Homelite 26 LCS, which I think is like 4,500 or 5,000 RPM. So within the range. But this one definitely sounds a little slower. Cuts a lot slower. There's no question about that. This one cuts way slower than any modern saw. But I don't really care, you know, it's just another cool old one to have in the collection, and, you know, I got it on eBay for easy money from a seller. I actually think it was that guy Marshall. He's got a tendency to paint his bars. This one has a bar that's still got some half-ass paint on one side. I scraped the paint off the other side, but, you know, in hindsight, I don't know if I should have done that or not, because it was actually pretty tough to get that paint off. Usually, with his bars, you just drip a little acetone on them and the paint comes right off, but this one took a little more effort. But anyway, another really cool old saw in my collection. Lombard 3.5D oddball V-shaped handle float carburetor. Not supposed to have either of those. But it does still have the 3/8 chain and sprocket. So that's always a plus. Ugh. Heavy sucker. Really cool, really loud, really unsafe. And it also, this is another one, it's got the Lombard logo cast right into the tank. Not all of them had that. So another one, I don't know if I'll paint it, restore it, or just leave it the way it is. You know, I kind of think they're entitled to show their wear and tear and their warts and blemishes. You know, this saw is 1953, so I was going to be 73 years old now. That's pretty cool, and it's 73 years old and it still runs. That's impressive. Not going to lie, that is impressive. But anyway, catch you guys on the next one. Take a look around the channel, because I got a few videos of this thing running and cutting some cookies. A couple of them my sister helped me film, so the camera quality is a little better than the cheesy quality you're getting today on my phone. But anyway, take care, guys. Happy Sunday. Stay safe. Stay warm. And I'll see you next time.